Flexbox are very important in terms of responsive design. Understand? So we are going to look at Flexbox. And we have a lot of information on Flexbox, but let's use our website, which is W School, W3 Schools. So you ask yourself, what is Flexbox? Why is it important? And why are we using it? Understand? So it just to, in a simple way, it's just to arrange, or it's just for a layout purpose. Because when you are designing a website for it to be responsive and arrange well, have a very good UI, you have to use what? Flex. You understand? So Flexbox has become very useful in everyday website design. You understand? We used to use something we call float, which was very difficult for us to center a lot of elements, to make it position where we want it, and to even control the responsiveness of a website. But with the coming of Flexbox, everything changes, and it makes our website very, very neat, responsive, you understand, and UI friendly. So CSS Flexbox is short for the CSS Flexible Box Layout Model. Flexbox is a layout model for arranging items horizontally or vertically within a container. You always put this in your mind. Horizontally or vertically within a container in a flexible and responsive way. Flexbox makes it easy to design a flexible and responsive layout without using float or positioning. You understand? We talk about positioning, right? So if you don't want to use positioning, if you don't want to use float, which we didn't talk about it, but normally float is something which we don't even want to use it. Saying we have flex can handle everything. You understand? So here I talk about within a container. So whatever we are applying or we are looking at an element which are inside a container. You understand? So CSS Flexbox is used for a one-dimensional layout with rows or columns. Understand? It's used for one-dimensional layout with rows or columns. And CSS Grid, which we shall come to it, I think, on Friday, is also used for two-dimensional layout with rows and columns. So the difference between Flexbox and Grid are Flexbox used for only what? One dimension or 1D layout with row or column, whilst Grid are used for two-dimensional layout with rows and column. But sometimes these are debatable. Understand? Some developers just use based on how it fits into their design. But this is what the different are. But even if you can use the other one to achieve a different style, depending on how you use it, how perfect you can use it. Either you use CSS Flexbox or you use Grid. But the reason why they are talking about it, mostly it looks nicer when you use Grid on a two-dimensional layout. You understand? A Flexbox always consists of a flex container, as I told you. A flex container, meaning the parent. So when someone is talking about container, he is talking about the parent element, where the display property is set to flex or inline flex. Understand? So always target the container or the parent and set the display property to what? To flex or inline flex, meaning you want the container to be flexible. You understand? So that any children's inside that container can move freely within the container. You understand? Either it can move what? Horizontally or it can move vertically. That it should be within the container because the container is now turned into a display property of flex. And what do you have again? One or more flex items that are the children's, either one child or children's. So you can have a nested element, meaning you have an element inside an element. And mostly those that we use as the container can be header, can be footer, right? It can be div or it can be span. So most of the times we use all these to represent like a container. So we have sections, we can use aside, we can use other semantic elements. You understand? So most of those are normally used as a container. So we put display property flex on that container. And then we target the children. So always put in your mind. So a flex container with 3 flex items. So this is a container, you understand, which is colored as background color of blue. And then we have 3 items. This item 1, item 2, item 3. So this is the main container. And so that's why it tells you that the element below represents a flex container, which is the blue area, with 3 flex items, which are these, meaning these are now flexible. That's why it says with 3 flex items. So now this item 1, item 2, item 3 are now flexible to move around. So that's why sometimes when you make the parents flex, you see that it has a space, empty space that can allow this to move freely. You understand? You understand? So sometimes if you use inline flex, it will make the thing inline, but it will still make that thing flexible. You understand? It's like the way we did as display inline, display block. And so here, although it is inline, but it still makes that container flexible. You understand? Just that it has their differences between flex and then inline flex. So this one is one of the example. You see here, this is the parent, right? You see here, we have a class. We name it as container. And the children are this. We have what? Item 1, item 2, item 3. So when you go to the CSS, you see this is the container. We add what? Display flex, meaning we want this container to be flexible. So we added what? Display flex. And we added a background for the container. And then here for the children, which is the div. So because each has div, so if you add div, it will affect all the children. Understand? So we can play along with them. Meanwhile, the container now is flexible. So if you want to inspect it and see how it looks, it's the same thing as the example that they give. You see how it is. So when I try to increase, you see that the thing is just there because it is flex. You see, look at it. Right? So that is what flex is. Right? So which property and value is used to create a flex container? Which property and value is used to create a flex container?
First one.
Look at it very well, don't be confused. Which property and value is used to create a flex container. That means it targeted the parents and it makes it flexible. So which property and value are used? We just did it here. So make sure you think about what we did and then just choose a correct answer.
Second one.
Second one. You understand? I told you because we make the display flex so that the container is now turned into flexible. And so whatever it is inside the container can now be moved. So we have display flex, not display flex box, not display flex item, not display layout. We don't have something like that. Flex day, we don't have something like that. We have display flex. So if you submit, then you see that you have the correct answer. Understand? So let's look at the container. Since we said that we are targeting the container and we are making the container flex, let's look at what is that container. What does it contain? Okay, so CSS Flex container. CSS Flex container, it also has its own properties. And so despite the fact that we know that we have display flex, which we are targeting as the container itself has also the properties. So if you set the container to a flex, then there should be another property that we can add to the container. The flex container elements can have the following properties. You understand? Now he's not talking about the flex itself. He said the flex container elements. You understand? Can have the following properties. Right? So we are targeting the container itself now. Display, which we already know, we set it to flex or we set it to inline flex. So that is what we add to the container. That's what we did, right? And now what are the other properties that we can add to the container? Flex direction, right? Since we say that the container should flex, then we have to specify if the container is flex, each children, where do you want it to move to? It has to have a direction. So that is where we also have another property, which is flex direction. So it is set, you set the display direction of the flex item.
Mm.
You understand? So the items which are inside, now we are telling them that to move this direction or that direction. So we have that property which can set it to move in that direction. Then what another property do we have? Flex wrap. Flex wrap. Last time I talked about wrap, if you could remember.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is wrap. Flex, it is flexible. Wrap, you wrap it. So when you notice that the element or the element that you are using, if you have an image that cannot fill all the portion because you set it to flex wrap, that element will shift itself down in order to get a space because it cannot enter or it cannot fix into the space that it has in the same line. So then it has to move itself to the second line. You understand? So that it have a space to fill. So it tells us that it specifies whether the flex item should wrap or not. So you can set it to either wrap or no wrap. You understand? And then we have something we call flex flow. Flex flow. What is flex flow? It's also a shorthand. As we know, we all sometimes have shorthand, as we did in margin, padding. Understand? We also have what? Flex flow, which is a shorthand property for flex direction and flex wrap. So if you want to combine these two things, flex direction and flex wrap, you don't want to write it in separate what? lines, you won't just write one line. You can use what flex flow, and then you can specify the first to be flex direction value, and then flex wrap or no wrap. Justify content. Justify content. If you are familiar with this word justify, we know that when I was talking about font or text, we did something about text align, which is justify, right?
Yeah.
So here we talk about justify content. It just looking at the horizontal line of the direction of your what of those child elements, and it align with within the horizontal axis, that is horizontal lines. So it aligns the flex item when they do not use all available space on the main axis horizontally, right? So it look at the horizontal axis. And when you see align items, this is what the reverse of this justified content, because this one also align flex items when they do not use all available space on the what? On the cross axis, which is the vertically, or which is what? The y-axis. So you can see this one is for the x-axis, and this one is the y-axis. Now you can see this one is in line, this one is block. I understand. So these are all things that they want to be easier for us, and that is why they brought all these word properties. And align content also align the flex line when there is extra space in the cross axis and flex items, which is wrap. So if you have an element where there is an extra space, so you want that space to be filled, you understand? You use align content. So that item or the children will use that space. And this one mostly we add what we normally add wrap, this flex wrap to it, because at the end of the day, when we run out of space, we want that item to be flexible to move into that position. So what do we want to tackle first? Let's look at the flex direction, right? Because normally we set the parents to be display flex. But what is flex direction? The flex direction property specifies the display direction of flex item in the flex container. So what is the value? So the property can have one of the following values. It can have row, as I told you before. The row is the default. So when you set the parent to be display flex, even if you don't write flex direction as row, the default knows that it is a row. Unless you want a different direction, then you set it to either column, which is set vertically, or row reverse, which will reverse the row, or column reverse, which will reverse the column. So that is the four direction that we have. You have row, which is horizontal, column, vertical, row reverse, which is horizontally reverse, and column reverse, which is vertically reverse. You understand? So this is an example. For instance, the row value is the default value, right? And it displays the flex item horizontally from where? Left to right. So when you set the thing to be display flex, even if you don't put this flex direction as row, the default is what? The default direction is what? Is row. So if you want to see the result, this is where the flex direction is. It's what? From left to right. So it will always be here. And here is the container. These are the three items or the children. So if you want to view it, you can click it and view how it is here. a div, the container, which have 3 children. These are the 3 children or 3 items, which are arranged horizontally with the flex direction row. You understand? From left to right. Okay. So me, it is just here. It doesn't move anywhere. It is just at the left. Okay. So when we turn the value to column, you see where the direction changes. Now it is not like here. It changes to vertical, right? When it is row, the direction is row. It is like this here, from left to right. Now when it is column, the flat direction is column. Then it is like this, vertical. You understand? So always note that flex direction. Column, row, row reverse, column reverse. We only have 4 values. These are the 4 values. Right? So for instance, if I use here, for instance, here it is what? Flex direction row. And I want to use row reverse. I can copy this and what? We go here. And instead of what? Instead of flex direction row, I want to make it row reverse, right? So when I run it, what happened? We see here. Now, where is the 1? The 1 is here, 2, 3. But initially, it was where? When I use row, it was here, 1, 2, 3. But when I want to reverse it, row reverse, means reverse the row. So it move here, 1, 2, 3. You understand?
Yeah.
So if here I say column, if I say column, what happened? You see it is like vertical, right? From top to
Yeah.
what? To bottom, right? But if I say column reverse, if I say column reverse, and I run it, what happened? Instead of 1, 2, 3, now it came here 1, 2, 3. From what? Bottom to top. You understand? So that is how the thing works here. It's very simple. It has only what? 4 values, which is row or row reverse or column or column reverse. So those are the flex direction. Now before that can work, you have to first make sure the container has what? Display flex. So let's continue. Okay. So you see there's a row reverse here. 1, 2, 3. And then column reverse. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Let's see if you understand. Right? Okay. So let me see if you understand. For instance, if I have a div, which is I will take it as my container, and then I'll give let's say I'll give a class and say this is my container. Right? And inside my container, I'll have 3 div, or maybe I can even give a span, but to be easier, I can just use the div. So I have div, and I'll say I have div 1. Then I have another div. Maybe I can have it as 4 times. Then this is 2, this is 3, and then this is 4. Right. So it means that which one is the parent?
The div class is the parent.
Okay, the div class, or I mean the class container is the parent, right? So if I come here and I target the what? I'm going to target there, the class, I can just target the div. But if I target the div, it will also affect all those divs, right? So the best way is to target the class, which is different from others div, right? So I target the class, which I say dot container, right? Say dot container, and then I'll give it a background color, maybe blue, right? So now the container is here, right? Then the
Yeah.
container, I can give it padding, maybe 20 pixels, right? So now I'm seeing all my children here. And here I have some spaces for my container, right? So now I want my container to be flexible. What should I do? What property am I going to use?
Display.
Display what?
Display flex.
Display flex. Okay, so you see that immediately I wrote display flex, you see all my what? My children arrange themselves horizontally, right?
Mm. Yeah.
Because display flex itself has a what? A flex direction of row. You understand? By default, its flex direction is row. So immediately you set it to what? Flex, it goes in a row in a direction which is row. So even if I write flex direction, and then I wrote the row again, it wouldn't change anything
Mm.
because that flex direction, that flex as row is the same thing as what? Setting it as flex. You understand? But if I want to change the flex direction from row, but if I change from row, I can just say row reverse. You see now it is reversed here.
Mm.
But if I leave it as row, it is the default way. And I can change it to a column or column reverse. You understand?
Mm.
So I can see that now you understand what I'm talking about. So we finished with flex direction. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So let's try different property. Okay. Our next property is flex wrap. Flex wrap. And as I told you, flex wrap also has what? Three values. So this is a property which is flex wrap. A property specify whether the flex item should wrap or not. So if there is no enough room for them on one flex line, definitely they will look for a space to another what? Another line. Understand? And the values are this: no wrap, which is the default. As I told you, the display has a default one, which is flex direction as row. Flex wrap also has its own default. So when you write flex wrap, the default is what? No wrap. You understand? So how does it work? Look at this thing. It's the same thing as we did. For instance, we are looking at this. So let me just use the box here. Let me target one div and give it as a background color, maybe yellow, right? And then after giving the background color of yellow, I'll add Let me see. Because I wanted to use their own so that it would be easier for you. Or should I just use this one? I think. Yeah, I think I can just use this one to explain it for you. Right. So now we are dealing with what? We are dealing with display flex, and we are talking about the property which is what? Flex wrap.
Mm.
You understand? Then I told you about the flex wrap is, for instance, these are what the children, right?
Yeah.
And the blue section is the container, right?
Mm.
So you see all arranged one with no wrap, meaning they can fill here. You understand?
Mm.
So now if I go here and say wrap instead of no wrap, I say wrap and I run this, what happened?
Mm.
You understand? Because the thing is, when you say no wrap initially, when you say no wrap, it forces itself any space that it finds, it tries to squeeze itself.
Mm.
Because as we told you to be flexible, right?
Yeah.
We said the container should be flexible. So when we say the flex wrap should be what? No wrap, it forces itself inside a container so that any space that it found, it squeezes itself into it. So that it wants to
Mm.
be inside a container by force. You understand? So it's trying to stretch, to shrink all those what? Boxes or items inside so that it can fix inside the container.
Mm.
You understand? But when you say wrap, it means that you are saying that don't force yourself to fix inside the container. If you have any space below, release yourself and try to fix that what? That portion. So if I say wrap and I run it, you see that it tried to freeze itself to its normal what length. You understand? So let's say this length, the normal length is what? Here from here is maybe let's say 2 pixels, right? So each box has a normal length of 2 pixels or normal width of 2 pixels, right? But when I say no wrap, it
Mm.
tries to force itself to become like instead of 2 pixels, it becomes 1 pixels so that it forces itself into the container. You understand? But if I
Mm.
say wrap means I'm giving freedom for each item to free itself to its normal width. So it freezes itself. So here, instead of filling this position with the 6, because the 6 cannot fix here, so it comes down. Understand? So look at, if I try to shrink this, the 5 will also come down if it finds that it cannot fix that place because it's set to wrap. You
Mm.
see, look at when I'm trying to shrink it. You understand? And because it cannot fix this position, so it's trying to fill another space by following the equal length, the equal space in between them. You understand? That is why we call it. That's why it is flexible. It try to shrink itself or try to release itself and always looking at the space in between to make it equal. You understand?
Mm.
So that is how it is. So when I try to stretch, you see that it is filling the space. It's filling the space. So that is wrap. I suppose wrap. So if I go here and you see that now it fill all the space. But when I'm shrinking, it comes down. That is wrap. You understand? But imagine, for instance, if I say no wrap. If I say no wrap, you see how it forces itself here, right? So
Mm.
if I say no wrap, if I try to shrink it, what will happen? If it finds that it try to shrink itself to, let's say, one width, one a width of one pixels. If it sees that it doesn't have a space or it cannot shrink itself anymore, it will start to
Mm,
overlap. It start to overlap
mm,
the container. So look, now it is trying to, it's shrinking itself, force. Look, it is forcing itself. You see,
mm,
because I set it to no wrap. I don't want it to wrap. So it is saying that I don't need to wrap. So it's forcing itself. Look, you see, it is forcing itself to be smaller. Look, you see. So when it reaches here, it found out that at this 526 width, it cannot force itself again. You understand? So now when I try to force it, it will try to overlap the what? The container, the blue container. You look at this. See. You see that now it is entering at the right side. Look, it is hiding now.
mm,
It's going out of the what? The blue what? Container. Because now it cannot force itself anymore inside the container. So it needs to go out. You understand? So always the best option is to set it to wrap. Because if you force something like this and it cannot what? Shrink itself, it will what? It will tend to wrap. So if I clear here and say wrap and run this, you see now it releases itself.
mm,
You understand? So no matter how I squeeze it, when it finds that it doesn't have any space, it will squeeze it and even come as one line. So you see that even if you are using a phone or tablet, because you set it to wrap, when you read this page, it will what? It will go in line with this, so that those who are using mobile phone can also read what is on the text. You
mm,
understand? So that's what we call responsive design, so that it responds to your what? Your screen view. That's what we call responsive design. So immediately you are increasing the what? The screen view. Maybe here is, we can see here it's like a laptop. You see we have what? Row of what? 5, and then here we have 4. But if you increase it, if you're having a large screen like a this desktop, you can see all the items in line. But if you're using a phone, mobile phone, you can see just one line like this. So that's why it's very, very important. So it only has what? These values, either no wrap, which is by default, wrap, or wrap reverse. You also know how this work when you say wrap reverse. It's the same as wrap, but wrap in a reverse way, right?
mm,
Wrap it at in a reverse way. So you can just wrap by reverse. So you can just click here. So you see it's wrap by reverse way, and one comes here instead of being here. So you start 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 in a reverse way. So if I try to shrink it, you see how it is. So this is right, reverse. So now 1 is down. My 1 is down because it's reverse now. So all of them are very important depending on your design, what you want the thing to look like. When I set to rock, it comes normally. Okay, so that is what all these are. So we finished with that too, right? So we don't have anything again. We did with what? Flex direction. We did what? Flex what? We did flex wrap. That is 2. So now we are dealing with what? Flex flow, right? So if I could write it here, you could see it clearly that we did what? Let's see H1. We did flex, right? Direction, right? And then we did what? Flex wrap. I understand. So these two are properties. It has a shortcut, which is what? Flex flow. Flex flow. So only this one can handle both of these two. How? Flex flow property is a shorthand property for setting both the flex direction and flex wrap. Understand? So first of all, you just write it as we normally do with a margin padding, right? So here you see, we set this to flex, our container to be flexible, and then we set flex flow. So when you set flex flow, it will have two values, right? So we can say flex direction, we have row, right? Right?
Yeah.
Flex direction, we have row reverse, we have column reverse. So we took one of the flex direction. And the second value is for the flex what? Wrap, which we have either wrap, no wrap, you understand, or wrap reverse. Understand? So instead of maybe using these two things, flex direction and then using flex wrap, we can just set it as flex flow, row, wrap. So if you are going to try this, you see that here we have, first of all, it says we want to have row, which is direction. And the second, we have wrap, which can wrap. So when I try to squeeze it, it wraps. You understand? So I can just remove this to column. Column. You see how it came column here. In column, it also wrap. But because we are not moving vertically, here you cannot even see it because we are talking about here is horizontal. Unless we are squeezing this vertically, that this one too can wrap. You understand? But mostly web design, mostly you don't even see column wrap like this. Unless something else, but normally is the row that would normally be used because we normally deal with row. We design things in a row, but we always add and add until we reaches or we fill the column. I mean the vertical. So at all times we're looking at the row. So here I can say row reverse, which is my flex direction, and then my flex what? Flex wrap is what I say. I set it to wrap, and if I run this, you see it's what? It's reverse. Understand? So that is what this thing is also about. So it combines both the flex direction and flex what wrap together. That's this one. But remember always to set your display to flex. Okay, so what again? So drag and drop the correct property name to set the direction of the flex or the flex container to color. Okay, so I'm listening. Set the direction of the flex container to column. So what is the
Let's
property and the
continue.
value?
And this thing. Flex.
Come again?
Flex wrap.
Flex wrap. What is the property? The property is flex wrap, or because we have two things. We have property and we have value. So look at property and look at the value.
Okay, flex direction column.
Flex direction column. Okay, flex direction, and then column. So it say correct property name to set the direction of the flex container to column. So flex direction column. So submit. Perfect. Understand. So it's easy if you understand it that way, right? Okay,
Yeah.
so we finish with that too. This thing, flex direction, flex wrap, and the shorthand is flex flow. So we finish with this. Okay, which property are we going to? We are going to justify content. Justify content. It's also what? Another flexbox property. The property align flex item along the main axis horizontally. So it arranges itself along the what? X direction, right?
Mm.
So what are the values? It has how many values? It has these values. Center, it has what? Flex start, which is what the default. Always remember the default. Flex start, flex end, space around, space between, space evenly. So that is the values for justify content. And so here we have what? Six different values for justify content, right? So what are
Mm.
they? As I told you, for them, they move horizontally on the x-axis, right? So if this is my container, anything that moves from left to right like this, or from right to left like this, but horizontally, not vertically, just horizontally, it is called justify content. Then if I write justify content, then I have to give a value where if within this axis, the x-axis, where do I want the items to be situated or to be stationed or to place. Then we have a value. I want it to be center. Then all the item comes at the center. I want it to flex that. Then all the item will here we start here, which is flex start. All the items will flex end, meaning all of them will be here at the end. Okay, so I'll go one by one and we'll see the example of it. So for instance, let's try this one because others too will have this one too. So let me just use this one to explain. So initially, what we do, we have our container here, right? And then we have our three divs, which is these boxes. 1, 2, 3, right? So we target the container and set the container to display what? Flex, right?
Mm.
Then after that, we apply the current what property, which is justify content. And then we say center. So it means that we are telling all the what? The items which is inside to be in the center. So that is the simplest way to be able to achieve any element to be in the middle or in the center, right? In the center,
Yeah.
but horizontally. Just put it in your mind. Justify content would allow the elements or the children to be in the center horizontally. You understand? So now, if I clear the center and I see flex start, flex starts. So if I run this, what happened? The items started. It came at the initial position. I mean the left position, which is flex start. So that is the value, the default value, which is flex start. You understand? Then I have flex end. So it goes at the end or it goes to the right side. So if I run this, it goes to the right side, which is flex end, right?
Mm.
Okay, then what I have again, I have justify content space between space minus between space between. What do you think if I run will happen? Space between.
There will be space between them.
There will be space between the items, which are this one, two, three. So I see this in between this one, two, there will be a space. In between two, three, there will be a space. That is all what I'm saying. If I run this, we see in between one and two, there's a space. In between two and three, there's a space. And those spaces are always equal. You understand? That is why these ones are very important. They are very good for responsiveness because it doesn't care because this is equal and this is equal. So even if I try to squeeze it, you see, oh what? It just follows the same equal space. So you see, it follows the same equal space. You see.
Mm.
So this one is what? Space between. And space between is the space between the items itself. Those items, this item inside. What about if I say space around? Space around. How do you think will happen? Space
Mm.
around. The other one, I said space between, it was space between the items. And next one, space around.
Like inside the container is going to
There
be.
will be a space. Now you see when I say space between, it only has space here, but there's no space at the edges, right?
Mm.
Now when I say space around, now it's looking at the around what? The item, around these items, there's a space. So that's where it's look at, not between. Because this one, the other one was between the item, but this one is around the item. So it will not affect this and this. Although this will have some what? Some space, but we are looking at the space around here at the edge. So if I run this, we see that now we have space here. That's space here. So this space around and space around here is equal. This space is equal to this space. But this space is just there. You understand? As what? As space between, right? Because it
Mm.
doesn't want to come closer and not attached to it. So it has to have some space. But the space around was just the space around the edges. You understand? But definitely because it is flexible, if it leaves this space, it will also leave you a space here, even though we are targeting this space. I understand because there will be a time that you are designing a website and you want the space around, and you don't even care about those spaces here. So if I try to squeeze it, you see the spaces are decreasing. You see how it is. Because they are flexible.
Mm.
You understand? And there's another one which is what? Space evenly. Evenly. What do you think? This is very easy. Space evenly.
It's going to give space equally. Yani, how can I say?
We're going to give space equally, whether it is
Equally.
around or it is in between, all the space are going to be equal. So if I run this, you see that this space is equal to this space, equal to this space, equal to this space. So if you are designing a
Mm.
website and you want equal spacing, you can use space evenly. So no matter how I stretch it, the space are equal. They are always equal. So you don't have a problem of you setting this weight to be 100, this 100, this 100, or trying to set something to make it all equal. If you just see space evenly, it will calculate based on the what? The viewport of your website and just make it equal. So even if I stretch, all the spaces are equal. If I were to stretch it and shrink it, all the spaces are equal. You see. So that is what justify content does. It looks at only the horizontal lines and what make it equal. If you set it space evenly, if you set it space between, it makes the space between equal and leave at the around. If you set the space what around, it makes the around equal and leave what the space between. I understand. And if you set it center, it puts all of what the items at the center. So if I see center, and mostly center is mostly what they normally use. If you want to use it on mobile device, because if you try to shrink it, it will always stay on equal size until it reaches the what the smallest width. And so when you are shrinking it, even if it is a mobile phone, looking at the sizes with the 360, it will still fit inside the mobile phone. So that is why it is responsive. You understand? You see how it is. You see how it is. So it's still responsive, even if you have a small device. It's still money to fit into the viewport. So that is all about justify content. So here they give you one center, flex what start, flex end, flex what space around, space what between, then space evenly. Understand? So which property aligns flex item horizontally along the main axis? This one is easy.
Justify content.
Justify content. Understand? So justify content. So the opposite of justify content is what? Align items. Look at it. Align items. You understand? This page covers align items and align content. Okay, so you now already know the justify content, and the opposites, or mean the one which looks at the vertical axis, or you can see the y-axis, is what? Align items. Right? And the values are also like this. Normal, which is by default. Stretch, center, flex start, flex end, and baseline. You understand? So this one has 6 values. So if we set this to display flex and we set align item to center, you see that it is at the center. But this one, normally we have to give a height because we are dealing vertical, right? Because we are dealing vertically like this, we have to set a height so that we can have space for this to be in the middle. Because you cannot see that you don't have height. So if I clear this height and run this, you see how it is. If I say I'm going to apply align items, it wouldn't have any space to move to, right? So always you have to have a height. Even if I say the height is like, let's say the height is 400, and I run, it's still going to be in the center of the 400. You understand?
Yeah.
So now we see align items center. So we centered this one, but we centered it vertically. I hope you understand the difference now. The other one we centered it horizontally. So all this came in the center. So because it's looking at the x-axis. But this one is looking at y-axis. right? So when you want
Yeah.
the center of the y-axis, you come here, which is the center. So if I say flex start, where do you think this one will be? If I run flex start, where do you think this will be? Top left here.
Yeah.
Okay, let's run. Right? Flex start, because we are dealing with vertical. So vertical at the top is the starting point. Then it comes down, right? So now if I see flex end, where will it go?
Flex end.
If I run it, which end? Which place? Horizontal. See this. I said align items, look at the horizontal line. So if we are moving these things based on horizontal line movements, and I set the flex to end, where do you think this one will go?
It will go back. It will come down.
Okay, down where? Bottom.
Yeah.
Because the thing, align item looks at the what? The vertical, right? Like y-axis, right? So when I said
Mm.
flex start, it start here. Now when I say flex end, it will shift and come here. So if I run, it will come here, right? If I say center, it will move and come at the center because it move this way. It move vertically. Don't look at the numbers as maybe this number is 1, 2, 3 this way. No. Here is horizontally. This one is vertical. So since it's moving vertically, this one doesn't change its direction. You just move it or shift it. You understand? So I'm going to let me see the other one because I think it's the same thing. Or we've done that. Okay, let's try to do the other ones. Okay, the normal one is just default one, right? So it doesn't
Mm.
change anything. Even if you come here and wrote normal, it's just going to be at the top. You understand? So normal, you just set it
Mm.
normal. Why normal? Because the reason why it stretched itself is because of the height that we added. I hope you understand.
Yeah.
Because of the height. But it's looking at this vertical. So it's trying to stretch itself to fix all this place. So that is normal for you, right? So that's the default behavior. So what about if I added, instead of making it normal, I say stretch. If I say stretch, what will happen? If I run stretch, the same thing, right? Because it stretch the thing. You understand? So imagine if I can reduce the height, the same thing. It follows the height because it stretch like this, because it's
Mm.
working vertically. You understand? So that is stretch for you. So we did normal, we did stretch, we did center, right? And we did the flex start, we did the flex end. What about baseline? What comes into your mind if I say baseline? If I say baseline, you see it as all what they should be aligned, be in the baseline. Like this is one, right?
Mm.
And this is two, this is three, right? So with respect to what is inside, like this one should be in the same in line with these two, and these two should be the same in line with these three. You understand? So when let's move forward, and we have align content property. Align content. Don't confuse yourself with align items. See, this is what align content. The one we did was what? Align items. You understand? So don't confuse yourself. We have this, what did this with this justify content, right? And then we did what? Align items. And then now we are going to do what? Align content. So look at these two, align items, align content. They are different. Understand? So what is the difference? Align content is used to align the flex lines. It only has effect when flex item wrap onto multiple lines. I understand. So when, for instance, if you have only one of this like this, if there is a multiple lines, it will work for the align content. But if there is no any multiple lines here, this align content wouldn't work. For example, let's see where they give an example. Look at here. What happened? They display flex, they give the height, they give flex wrap, as we know. So this one will wrap here, right? And then we have align content to be center, right? So this one will come here. Look at. So all this one arranged in the center, but with what? With a wrap, which is this one. So if you say space between, it will look at this. This align content only what? Look at the align of the flex what lines. You understand? So it what stretch, it also has center, flex, and space between, space around evenly. So if we are going to focus on this, normally look at the height, 400. And we have wrap, we already know wrap, and we have align content. So the content which are this, right? So take
Mm.
all these content. When you say content, take all of them and put them in the middle, in the center. And now it's looking at what? Based on the vertical line. So when you come here, space between, it left this one, it goes this one. So this align content is similar to the justify content in what? In a vertical way, not in a horizontal way. Because justify content was looking at what? Vertical, a horizontal what? Direction, which is the x-axis. But align content, it also looks at what? Vertical, but where there is a space, we use that. Because normally, if it were to be this one was to be align content and say space between, because in align content, we don't have space between. Yeah, I mean align item, we don't have space between. You understand? But align content, we have space between because this always look at like just file content, but in a vertical way. So that's why when we set it, you see it came here, and when it came here, normally this one should have been here. If it were to be the no wrap, it would have to fix itself here. Now because of the wrap and align content, it didn't come here, this place. This 9 should have come here, right? But it didn't come here, it came down here because of the space. You understand? So if you want to achieve a center, let me give you this as an exercise. Let me give you as an exercise. For instance, if we have something like these things are there, and we are trying to use both align item and justify content. Use these ones. Look, this one, justify content and align items. I want you to use this one, not this one, just these two, these two. You use these two to make this center. Can you do it? Okay, let me just write the property so that you can see them. Justify content. I want the value. You tell me the value. The second one, I want align items. I also want the value of this. So tell me which value should I use for the justify content and which value should I use for the align item to get everything here in the center.
I think we will use center.
I use for a center.
Yeah.
Okay, so I use for the horizontal center. Okay, I got correct. So imagine if I let me increase this to 400 so that's so what do you think? You already said can you justify content at center, right? Right, which I achieved that. Okay, then what about align item?
The same thing.
The same thing, center.
Yeah.
Okay, okay, that's perfect. So you see how easy it is.
Mm.
Hmm? Now see
Yeah.
how easy it is. You just have to understand the kind of property you are using. You see, we just use these two property and we get things to be in the middle. I understand. So it's just simple. So assuming that if I say because this justify content, as I told you, it move what? It move only at the x-axis, this from here to here. And I told you the align items also move from what? Top to bottom or what? Vertical or what? Y-axis. So if you can get center the horizontal, you can center the vertical, you get your object to be in the middle. Understand? If you want, you can just say flex, also end. Then it will be in the middle, but it will go here. Right? Flex, yeah, okay. It will come here because it's the direction is talk about align items. Right? So you have to always think about these two things. Justify content, horizontal, align items, vertical. So whenever you're applying something, you know where it's going to move to. So assuming here, I added maybe flex and I see end. It is standing here, right? So if I say flex end, looking at justify content, where do you think this one will move to? Hmm?
Which one?
I say justify content flex end. So this one is just standing here. So what if I say flex end and I run this, where do you think this one will move to? Based on what? Always think about what that justify content does. Where does it move to?
It will move to the top end.
Understand? To move to where?
Top end.
Top
To
top
the left.
end. To the left.
Yeah.
Look at it very, very well. Just look at the very what is justify content? Where does justify content look at or move to? It always move horizontally, right? So your mindset will always should be what? Immediately I say justify content, it means you are just going to move in the x direction, whether it is negative, positive, that is where we are going to move in. So now we have to look at the value. What does the value say? Flex end. Let me make it easier for you. This box is here, right? Right?
Yeah.
It is here. So if I say flex end and I'm targeting what? Justify content, and I told you that justify content always move from left to right or only horizontal direction. So whether it is move left or it move right, it is horizontal. It doesn't move vertical. Justify content always move what? This horizontally. And then you ask yourself, what is the value? Right? So if you just write justify content, meaning you are telling this thing to move, that it can move either left or right. You understand? Then now look at the value. What does the value say? Flex end. Meaning if you are here, end. Where is end? Here. If I say start, where is start? Here. How you understand? Because I only move horizontally, so I can only move here. If I move here, it is end. If I move here, it is what? Start. So it is just that you add flex end or flex start. If I say flex end, this one should move here. So if I run this, it move here. If I target align item and say I want the align item to be what? Center. Where do you think this box will go?
It comes center.
Center where? I know it is center, but center, there's a lot of centers. Here is center, here is center, here is center. Where's center? Center of what? But first, we have to think that
Horizontal.
what is align items go? Where does it go? It always go vertically, right?
Yeah.
If it goes vertically, then if I say center, with respect to where this thing is there, where do you think it will move to and become center vertically?
To move to the middle, in the
This
middle
is
of the box.
vertically. This is vertically, right? This is vertical. This one is here. So if I say center, where does it? It comes here. This is the center. Well, it is just here, and it has only one direction to move, which is vertical movement here. Because I'm talking about align items. So if I say center and I run it, you see where it is, right?
Yeah.
So if I say here, flex starts based on what? Just file content, where will it move? Mhm.
To come to the start.
The start of where?
Right.
I know it's come to the start.
The
Huh?
left. Left.
The left. Okay. I think it's better you start explaining yourself. You just say left. Here is left. Here is left. You can just say it will come to the middle of this left. Here is the start. Because it can only move horizontally. So if I'm talking about justified content, you put your what? Your eyes or your mind away from being moving to vertically, because I'm talking about justified content. And justified content is anything that can move from left to right. So immediately I put the value, you start to think flex start. If you want, you can even forget about the flex here and concentrate on the start. Where that the testing starts. In here it starts. right? So if I say flex start, because it can only move to the left or right, then it will come here, start. If I say center, then it will come here because it can only move left to right. It comes center here. So now if flex start, if I run it, you see where it comes. Okay, if I target align item and say align item should also be flex, and where will it go?
It will come to the right end.
This thing will be very difficult for it. I don't know why. Maybe I don't know if I have some. Okay, I can have some annotation here and draw it for you to see. Yeah. Okay. Look at this. This is what? Horizontal, right? And this is what we
Yeah.
call justify content. Let me like GC. This is the direction. Either it can move here, this, that's direction. And direction of what? Direction of align items move like this. So here I'll write a align item. So I write AI. So align items. You understand now? Okay, so now let's do let's do it very well. So now this one is this box is standing there. Okay. So if that's the case, so here I'm just going to write editing and then I'll ask you what is where do you think the thing will go? All right, center, and then here I'll write flex start. So just look at based on this, read this and tell me this box, where will it stand? Where will it
It will
start?
go to the top.
To go to the top.
Top.
Which top? Top of where?
Yeah.
Top of where? It will go to the
Top of.
top. Where?
Mm,
Hmm?
in the middle. Middle of the align item.
So it will be in the top of the middle.
Yeah.
Okay. So this one is moving horizontally at the center. So first of all, that's what we are targeting. So this one will first move here and come here, which is the center, right? And now the second one is
Yeah.
saying you now move what vertically. And to move vertically, you say flex start. So where is the start? Here. I understand. So if I run this is where this thing will come. I understand. Okay. Let's give another one. Let's end, and then this one will be flex starts. Okay. Where will it go?
Which one?
This one, here is a question. And look at this. Tell me where will this go?
It will go to the left end. Right end.
Right end. I took my end.
Of
Trust me here. I
justify
didn't like.
content.
Okay. First of all, what will flex end? And flex is moving horizontally. So ending is where? This. Right?
Yeah.
So if
Mm,
it is here, then we target this one, align item. Align items also move this direction. So if I see flex start, it means that it will just stay in the same direction, right?
yeah.
So it will come here. So if I run this, it comes here. Mhm. So I think I don't want to load you with a lot of things. I think this, even if I give you these two things, you have to go and then because this thing, if you don't understand it, it will be difficult for you to get it. And so I think it's better you understand it very well. If not, it will be very difficult for you to get it. You know, so you see here, in order to let this become center, display flex, height is 400, and then just file content is center, understand? So because it's moving from left to right, it was here initially, so it moved to the center, which is here. And then when I look at the align items and see center, it also comes at the center. You understand? So which property align flex item vertically on the cross axis?
Align item. Align
Align
item.
item. You understand? So let's make sure these two things are very, very important. Even if you understand those two, it will make things easier for you. You understand? There are other flex items, I think. Mm, okay, maybe I'll do this later because since you are struggling with this, I will let you finish with that one.